so sorry. I'm in an Airbnb. I just arrived in America and the internet keeps telling me that it's unstable, which is quite frightening.
Welcome to America, first of all. It's unstable. The message is coming through loud and clear.
Welcome to this special IndieWire conversation with Emerald Fennell, the lauded writer and first-time director, which is amazing, who shot out of a cannon with Promising Young Woman, which won the WGA Award for Best Original Screenplay, Oscar nominations including Picture, Director, Original Screenplay, Actress, and Editing. Congrats on your 2 BAFTA wins for Screenplay and Outstanding British Film of the Year, which was so much fun to see the other night. And joining us today, Angela Robinson, who I first discovered with Debs, who's been writing and directing and producing such TV series as True Blood, The L Word, and Hung. Catherine Hardwicke, who I've been tracking since 13, and of course, Twilight, and who worked with both Oscar nominees Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried on Red Riding Hood. They talk about you when they bonded on your movie, The Manx Stars. And of course, Jay Duplass, the ultimate multitasker, who not only acts in such shows as Transparent, but with his brother Mark, has built an indie TV and film empire with such films as Cyrus and Jeff Who Lives at Home and TV series like Togetherness and Room 104. I love the range of perspectives that we have here because the whole idea is to deconstruct a little bit what Emerald has done. And you guys just pop in, have a conversation. I will literally withdraw as you get going because you don't need me, but just to get you started, I'm going to start with Jay and ask you what first clued you into the fact that this movie was not playing by the usual rules.
I can't even tell you the moment that it was, but I do remember early in the film, I realized Cassie wasn't going to be a perfect person and that she wasn't necessarily going to be a model for morality, which I found interesting because as I read reviews, which I'm a filmmaker and I read other people's reviews just to see what they're thinking. It's a well-lauded film, in general, but some of the criticisms were due to Cassie's lack of morality. And I think that was my first clue is that this person is not perfect at all and is not supposed to be perfect. And that was partially one of my first questions for you, Emerald, too, was just like, there is a tiny bit of criticism of Cassie's morality. Because I have thought a lot about the revenge flick. And I personally what was so exciting about this film for me is that in my mind, revenge doesn't work. It's not a viable... And a lot of revenge movies are dead in the water for me very early on because of what I see as a false morality around revenge, that it's actually going to get you somewhere good. And what was so exciting about this to me is that there was not that promise. It maybe great things would happen, but also it felt like terrible things were going to happen too. And that was so enjoyable for me and felt different from every other revenge flick. So like, I'm talking way too much, but what I want to say is that I thought the questionable morality was super exciting, and that's what really clued me in that we're going to be in for quite a ride.
And I thought the openings, the very opening scene where we saw all those dad bods, and
I agree. It was like the first couple of the intro to the film. I was like, this is fantastic. It's so great.
Those guys dancing was hysterical. It was just what you were focusing on, like the little pudgy mid-set, it was awesome.
And it seemed really directly to kind of take a traditional male gaze, by design, and apply it to these dudes in the same leering, kind of exciting way. And I was just I'm so in from the jump.
I was laughing. It was so funny. Now, did you always have that idea for the opening shot? I mean, that was awesome. You know?
I think so. I think the opening shot's such a hard one because I just don't know how people do it in a funny way. It's too much pressure. And so I think, but I knew what I wanted was that people knew that they had permission to laugh early on. To kind of really establish what kind of film it was, which is that it was, was going to be kind of dry and funny and sometimes a bit silly. And it was going to use music kind of ironically. And it felt like otherwise, if we just plunged straight into the scene where the guys kind of noticed Cassie, it just felt too dark actually and relentless. It needed to establish itself as something people wouldn't be afraid to laugh at because of the subject matter, I think.
It was almost like we were watching them at the zoo or in an Attenborough nature film where you're just watching these guys and they had nothing to do. They were just kind of like bubbling about. So I think permission to laugh is such a huge and smart move at the beginning of this film, because I think, especially for viewers at home, most people are watching things alone or with their spouse at this point in time. And it's a much more of a challenge for, conveying comedy. So I think that was a brilliant move on your part.
I'm sorry. Are you singing Paris Hilton?
What? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Stop it. Shh.
It's fine. Treat me like you do. Real. I'm satisfied. Oh, you know.
Even though the gods are crazy, even though the stars are blind, if you show me real love, baby, I'll show you mine.
Was there a kind of anxiety at Sundance that you didn't know how it would play? Because as I said at the beginning, this movie does take so many different twists and turns and risks. I think it's hardly conventional in its way of reaching the audience. I don't think I was nervous, possibly just out of pure naivety. And also I was just so excited. I was so excited to be there that really I kind of didn't have time to be nervous. But I also think I really loved the film. I know that sounds very arrogant. I don't mean it. I'm just really proud of it. I really love it. I really love everyone who worked on it. And I really believe that the decisions that we made for it, whether they're difficult or provocative or people don't like them, which is the case often, I believe in it. And so I think in a weird way, I felt okay because even I knew that if people didn't love it, I could understand why, rather than I wasn't presenting something that I felt had been really compromised, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then I would have felt like, because I think sometimes when that happens, I get the impression everyone else here will know better, is your instinct is to go, I know, I wish I hadn't done that too. But I think we were so lucky because it's such a low budget movie that we were kind of able to make the thing we wanted to make.
I thought I was fascinated with, the whole style. Of course, I come from production design background. So like the whole look of the house and then, how you kind of crafted Cassie's character, like what do you think that living in that kind of house, how did that influence her clothing, and how did that all come together? I loved it all.
What a home. It's unbelievable. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. Susan works really hard.
Yeah, it shows.
So much about her character really is using her femininity and as a weapon, and using it as a disguise. And I think it was important that that her house felt like everyone in her family, it was kind of in stasis. It was not. It was just stuck in time. It's completely silent. It's completely perfect. And I think it made sense that her mother would have poured all of the love and affection she'd had for her daughter into this house. But it's also kind of hostile. That's what's so great about it. We kind of added lots of, there are no pictures of people. It's just dog paintings, millions of dog paintings. It's impersonal. We were kind of on the fence about plasticating the furniture, but then we thought that would be kind of too arch. But but the dining table, the kind of doily over the dining table is plastic. So, it's look, but don't touch. It's like, it's it's very created, I suppose. And so it made sense that that's kind of where, to me, that was the kind of place that Cassie had come from, and that she knew that women don't get questioned if they brush their hair and wear makeup and wear pink sweaters, that actually, generally speaking, people think they're functioning. Because there's this idea, I think, that when we're all depressed, we're in sweatpants. But actually, you know, me and Carrie thought a lot of what Cassie does is about self-harm and addiction, which is sort of goes back to the question of morality and revenge and whether it's, you know, a good or a bad thing. But I think addicts are so, you know, what they're best at is hiding in plain sight and functioning. So it really, she needed to wear those plaits in her hair, because those plaits stop people from saying, what the fuck's wrong with you? What's happening? Like, what's happened? Because she looks fine.
I wanted to ask you, because when you do a ton of press for a film, you end up kind of in a pattern. I was just wondering, is there any question that nobody's asked you or something that you're super proud of? Because sometimes you end up just saying the same things, just like that somebody, like nobody like ever asked, or just one thing that you were like, I totally thought about this thing and I executed it totally flawlessly and it totally makes the movie work, but nobody would ever think about it.
Nobody said shit.
Nobody said anything about it.
I think I've been quite
I've been there.
I've been quite lucky because I have had probably 3,000 conversations about it, which means that that for right or wrong, most of the things have been kind of noticed to some degree, particularly things like the sort of biblical references and the visual metaphors in the film, which I sort of just love doing that stuff so much. But I think in general, it's so nice talking to you all, and I think what I found is that because of the nature of what this film is about, most of the discussions I've had with people have been political, which I completely understand, and it makes total sense. But it's also something that I have, you know, would never kind of claim to be an expert about, and it's a very, very complicated subject, and one that is very personal to every single person. So that's been a difficult thing, because, you know, and again, going back to the earlier question, you can't speak for everyone. You can't speak for everyone's experience, but I think there still is an expectation that you can and must. And I think that does have something somewhere to do with this idea of morality, and that your protagonist's morality in some way is the same as yours, or those two things are often conflated. Maybe more if you're a female filmmaker with a female protagonist. There's an idea that everything in this film is something that I would heartily recommend, which obviously is not the case. Very much not the case. But it's just been an interesting experience saying, you know, finding that those conversations are often very far away from film conversations. That, you know, they're very much, they are political conversations, which, you know, again, it seems very disingenuous of me to have made this film and not want to talk about it. I'm very happy to talk about it, but it's a strange thing when you're, you know, when the stuff that you do feel you know about is what's in the film, and then everything else you're less talented and articulate about, I suppose.
And a political discussion is always going to be reductive inherently, because this is a personal work of art. And some of the stuff that I was reading about it felt even reductive of Cassie's character, you know, because one of the big takeaways that I had, which I loved, is that everyone is complicit, you know. I felt complicit in a really good way, and it just made me feel that, you know, I don't think I've ever had the feeling as much in a piece of art that, like, you know, to say nothing is to contribute to injustice, essentially, you know, because I grew up in a very old world in New Orleans, and I went to Catholic school, all boys Catholic school. And I know I was a witness to so many of these conversations. So if you're not actively fighting against that conversation, you're contributing to it. You know, almost everyone in the film is complicit in some way, which I thought was fascinating. And even when Bo Burnham's characters, I think he says at some point when they have their final moment, he says, have you not done anything that, you regret, or have you not done anything wrong? And
so you're perfect, right? You've never done anything you're ashamed of?
I've thought about that moment so much since I've seen it, because I thought it was interesting that you didn't get into a whole conversation about it, which, even though I want to know, I don't think I wanted to see that conversation. I don't know if I have a question with regard to that, but I was just kind of curious. I want to hear you talk more about like Cassie's, how she's complicit and her toxicity, and how she has inherited that, or, either genetically, environmentally. I don't know. It's just a really great study on all levels. It starts with like toxic men, but like it goes way, way deeper. And I think it's more interesting from a character's perspective to me.
Yeah, I think it is. It's absolutely, for me, just a film about how we all, and it's, God, the last couple of years have just uncovered it more and more in every single kind of possible sphere, in every way. How we are all just complicit in prioritizing our own comfort, pleasure, privilege over other people. And so it's a really, like you, I grew up in a world where this stuff was just completely normal and is still completely normal. What was really interesting when this film came out, when I pitched it to certain people were like, this is outrageous. Like, this stuff, I just can't believe it. And you just think, really?
Really?
Really? Because, that's not the experience anyone I know had, certainly growing up, or even, watch any movie from 10 years ago, watch any comedy.
Yeah, which mainstream. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of complicity, it's a complicated one, because the women in this film are complicit in a very specific and different way to the men. Madison certainly, in my mind, and she kind of says as much. She says things happened all the time, and her way, like so many women's way, is just laugh it off. Embarrassing party story. That is something that was a real part of the complicity, I think, was just like, there are cool girls and there are girls who like make a fuss. And I think Madison has mistakenly chosen one of those paths, and then to be confronted by that is appalling to her. And, the dean of the university works in a place that is made entirely of wood paneling and portraits of old men. And when it comes to Cassie, I think, certainly a lot of her decisions are because I don't know how far she feels complicit, but certainly she feels an enormous amount of guilt because she wasn't there. And that's not fair for her to feel that way. But, I think that so much of it is about being a survivor of something like this. And also, it seemed to me particularly female that you would do this on somebody's behalf. I'm not sure. I think women are so good, unfortunately, good isn't the right word. They're so practiced at dealing with their own shit because they have to be. But when it comes to somebody they love, that's when it gets dark. I didn't really believe that it was a journey you'd go on your own behalf in a strange way.
Oh, I'd love to ask you about the scene with her best friend's mom. That was quite interesting too. That the mother's like, you just got to move on.
Look, I know you feel bad that you weren't there, but you got to let it go.
I'm just trying to fix it.
Oh, come on, you can't. Don't be a child, Cassie.
Absolutely. No, I think it was really important to say that I think so much of the film is about how hard and lonely the path she takes is, and boring and relentless and unpleasant, and how unpleasant it is for everyone else too. And I think we have this idea that grief is, particularly if you're a parent, that you would want to see your daughter's best friend all the time, that you would want. I don't think that's true. I think that what she says is it's like a ghost. It's like they're trying to live their lives, and she shows up and she won't let it go. You know, the guilt of the parents trying to move on with somebody saying, why are you moving on? You know, and she says, the first thing she says, I think she said, so I'm sorry you can't come in, you know, that George doesn't like to see, you know, they can't bear to see her. It's horrible, because it would be horrible anyway, but she won't, you know, what she's doing, even if it's right, it's unbearable. And I think, you know, we tend to romanticize these kind of feelings all the time. We tend to romanticize grief, or, you know, this kind of anger or whatever it is. But I just don't think, I don't know, in my experience, people have not wanted to talk about it. So it was really important. And I think there was a version when we didn't have it in there. But I think it was very important to kind of, because that's the moment where she decides if she's going to let it go or not. And the proof against her, you know, everyone is saying, let it go. And so we as an audience need to say, let it go, because it's going to be so much easier.
It was so amazing. I love the Dean scene, because I don't feel like I've ever seen a scene which so encapsulated a worldview, like, and that you were talking about earlier. But like, I was like driving down the street in LA, and you see all sorts of, I don't even think it's COVID carnage, but homeless people and different things, and like all over the place. And I was just like, with my kid driving by, dude, like, and then I was just like, how can I drive by? Right? Like, how can I just drive by? Like I'm just driving by, going to the doctor's, going to whatever. And I thought it was so, like, there's a frame of mind you get into where you're like, I'm living my life and I'm just doing whatever the ideological space you're in. And so with Connie's character, the Dean, to have the ideology of the school, and then in 3 minutes, it just zeroed from like super wide to incredibly narrow. And like, she just went, you know, 180 from I can't care about everything to this is the most desperate thing that I care about in the world. And it was just like a flip. And I was like, wow, like I've never seen a scene kind of shift a POV of a character that radically and like beautifully.
Tell me where my daughter is, please.
Relax. Dean Walker, do you really think I would do something like that? Luckily, I don't have as much faith in boys as you do.
It was like a beautiful writing magic trick.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
fully earned, fully believable and earned. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a tough one to have those, to write these kind of conversations, because of course what you don't want is to feel that these people are just like ciphers. Mm-hmm. And so much of it was casting people and saying, kind of reiterating to them that this is, yeah, that, and again, it's sort of what Connie's character says, like, if you're getting these complaints daily, you know, and you tried the first few times and then realize the system is just not built for them, you know, what happens, it's trying always to be sort of, to be generous to the people, to the characters, even the ones that are letting themselves down, because exactly to your point, the stuff that interests and frightens me is what we all do. How would we all justify ourselves when the kind of angel of retribution comes to our door and says, exactly as you say, what have you done to help the homeless? Where is your phone from? Who made that? Are they okay? You know, all of the stuff that we do, you know, the food that we eat, everything that we do, it comes from something and somewhere. We all have to turn a blind eye. And this is a very general, I don't mean to conflate the issues of this film, but in a very general sense, we all know we're not good to some degree, and we're frightened of being asked to explain ourselves. And so that seemed the most, because of course I think some people, you know, expected, because of the genre, of sort of violent retribution. and maybe it just says something about me that I'm not very frightened of violence, really. But I'm frightened of being bad and wrong and unforgivable, I think. But maybe again, that might be because I've never really lived with the threat of violence. So it's very easy for me to say. But yeah, no, it's the moment when you see the scales fall from people's eyes and they realize that they're not good.
To have Connie Britton play that role, or Adam Brody play the like nice guy, that they also inhabit places within pop culture that kind of lends these different kind of like, it's like Sash for the OC or that it was just so beautiful. And then even in all of the casting, it kept undermining itself, but in very subtle, really beautifully rendered ways where you did it, but you weren't like, they're all bad or they're all good. Like nobody was.
Yeah. I mean, Alfred Molina is just the greatest ever of all time.
Incredible.
Thank God.
You gotta help me. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I haven't slept in... I'll never forgive myself. I want you to know that. I'll never forgive myself for any of this.
It was so exciting, those scenes. I mean,
he said he'd been expecting this. That was great. Yeah.
I think that was the thing. Is again, it's sort of it's definitely the most like overtly biblical sort of scene, really, of the desperation for forgiveness. He felt so much like the inverse of Cassie, really, somebody who had just been completely broken by it. And also I felt we really needed to see Cassie's sort of, she's able to do what she does because she makes excuses and boundaries for herself. She's very specific about how she enacts the things she does. And I really wanted to see what would happen when she got what she wanted, which was somebody to apologize and somebody to acknowledge. And of course, she has to forgive them because that's the bargain she made with herself. But it is profoundly appalling to her and disgusting, and she is repulsed by him, and it doesn't make her feel better. Nothing, you know. There was a scene actually that we cut with her mother when her mother asks if Ryan is going to make her feel better, and she says nothing makes me feel better. And it felt understandably too on the nose now I'm saying it. But it is that thing of like, what do you do? You know, and it's vengeance. Like, well, what's the point? Who will it help? It won't. And you know, that was always the thing about the ending of this movie. But, you know, if we get the ending that we want, which is violent retribution and a bloodbath and a burning building behind her, it just ends in jail and she's just a psycho. There is no kind of meaningful or useful revenge journey, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. I was going to just say, I thought that what was so incredibly profound for me was the scene, like that, sorry, spoilers, but like after she is murdered and then the bro friend is comforting the other guy and he's like, just keep saying it's not your fault. It's not your fault. I was like, oh my God.
Compulsively.
Just like, it's not what I was like. This is like, you see it being rewritten in their heads, like the neurons realigning to kind of their reality of like, I can't ruin my life.
No, it's not. It's not.
Am I gonna go to jail?
What?
What about the wedding and my job? Anastasia's gonna be so upset with me.
Well, no. Ow. It was an accident, right?
I mean...
It was an accident.
I mean, of course it was a fucking accident.
Yeah, of course it was a fucking accident. No one's gonna go to jail because no one's ever gonna find out.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. That scene was always going to be the most nerve-wracking because it's actually the most broadly comic scene of the whole film, which kind of on paper should be terrible. To me, it's the most shocking because we've seen it so many times before, but we've never thought about the body on the bed. But here in this version, we are only interested in the body in the bed, and all we see is her being climbed over, her hand moved, and of course they do not think it is, as far as they're concerned, some psycho from back in the day that no one remembers came and tried to like kill their best bro. Like, thank God he got rid of her, and they're going to of course cover it up. It's kind of like it's all of that stuff is just it's so shocking. And yes, as you say, it's impossible it is just kind of impossible to get any purchase on it.
Thank you so much for helping us out here, Angela, Catherine, Jay. I enjoyed this so much. I learned a lot. And onward, have fun at the Oscars.
Oh my
Yes.
Kill it.
Yeah.
So much. Honestly, I can't. I'm just such a fan of all of yours. And so this is just the kindest.
Honored to be here. Honored.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, you all.
Bye.